Welcome to this week's episode of the Aiming Five Hole Podcast. Phil and my main man Ryan here to talk a little hockey. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing well, Phil. I'm doing well, even though the Canes did not win last night. I was hoping for 3-0. It's been a good week of hockey. It's
Lots
been
to talk about.
lots to talk about. Once again, just like last week, we got lots to talk
Busy week. Well, we just sort of, we obviously got Four Nations Cup rosters to talk about. We got firings in the NHL of head coaches. Who knew that was coming? And with Luke Richardson, what the hell's
Lots of
going on in
Rangers.
New York? What's going on in New York? We can talk about that, and we can obviously start where we always do with our Leafs and our Habs.
Yep. Well, let's start with the Habs this week.
Let's do it.
I thought they had a entertaining week of hockey. Once this team figures out how to start burying the 4 million chances they've had in the last few games, they're going to be winning some games comfortably, not just winning. It would be great to see.
Hold on, time out. How do you start there and not start with Patrick Laine coming back and scoring on his first shift?
We'll get there. I give the overall message first.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead on you. Sorry.
You're jumping ahead. Man, stealing the thunder. So look, overall, it was a very encouraging week. First of all, like you said, getting Patrick Laine back and having him score in his first power play with the Canadiens on a wicked wrist shot, which he then repeated in the second game on the power play. A wrist shot like very few people in the game have. It's so great to see. He still looks like he's moving a little bit in slow motion, but his puck skill is evident every time he's on the ice. And you could see the way having him out there inspires Juraj Slafkovsky. I would like to see it inspire Kirby Dach just a little bit more.
You've been talking about that for a while.
Dach is he's a bit of a mystery. Is he still a little nervous about the knee? Is he still sort of feeling his way back? They say sometimes with severe knee injuries like this, it takes time to play your way back into shape and into confidence and this and that. The thing is, he shows flashes of his former self where he's physically dominant, makes phenomenal plays with the puck, wins puck battles in the corners. And you're seeing flashes of that, but you're also seeing a lot of flashes of bad stick penalties, which drive me crazy.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. I don't mind, roughing penalties and, a stick penalty when it's important to keep a scoring chance from happening, but he's taking them in weird spots. But again, not to bury the lead, right? Like Patrick Laine's, it's fantastic to see him happy. It's fantastic to see the reception that the fans gave him. He is a weird looking dude.
Those suits he wears going in like, oh my! I haven't watched much of PK Subban and the free games on ESPN for all the reasons that you know why and can't stand him. But I gotta imagine he's having like a field day talking about his suits.
Oh yeah, for sure. Those are not off the rack to be sure. But look, it's great to see him back. The reception the fans gave him, especially after that first goal, was just insane. And he talked about it after the game as to how incredible an experience it is look, anytime you get an ovation like that from the Montreal Canadiens fan base, there's nothing like that in sports.
Well, we should talk about this a little bit because, we talked about it, I think, in our first episode about, what he was going to mean to this team and how the fans would treat him. And it's, and I should correct myself, he didn't score on his first shift. I think it was the first power play, but the reception he's given, it surprised me. The Montreal fan base, like the Toronto fan base, can be very tough on players, and they have opened up their arms and their hearts to this guy like I never believed would happen. And he's a weird dude. He talks weird, he looks weird, he dresses weird, but there's no question to what you said earlier a few minutes ago. He has changed the dynamic of the team a little bit. You guys went 2-1 this week, was good.
Yep.
And your tone this week in terms of our conversations on text.
Yeah, I'm off the couch.
Completely changed. I'm going to lose my job as your therapist.
I'm off the couch. Good
to see.
I won therapy. But look, there's obviously absolute ton of work to do on this team
Oh yeah.
still, but it's nice to have a week where you're feeling like there's progress made. There's light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah.
maybe, and improvements are being made. And maybe Martin St. Louis isn't out of his depth. Like every time they lose two in a row, people freak out, and that
It's imagine
Martin
when
St. Louis got to be fired. He doesn't know what he's doing. He should be coaching Bantam again. Like this is a long process, and everybody overreacts to every little thing.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Especially the biggest fans. And obviously adding a little bit of scoring to the team just changes the dynamic. We talked about it, I think you mentioned it last week and the week before. Adding line A back has changed their lineup a little bit in terms of how they structure their lines, and it's obviously working, which is great. It's good to see. So
yeah, and it's nice to see Alex Newhook find his game a little
yeah,
bit. He was starting to feel the heat from the coaching staff and the press and the fans. Obviously, there was a big trade to bring him over from Colorado, and I think
yeah,
it's good to see him skating well, scoring, adding to the play, playing well with Caulfield and Suzuki.
yeah.
So how are the Leafs doing?
It was an up and down week, I think, for Leafs. There's not a ton to talk about. Obviously, they're starting to get some players back. Obviously, nice to see Matthews back. Nice to see Nyes back. Although we lost McCann, we've lost McCabe, which is tough. So we got to get through some of these injuries. And so they started off the week obviously really well, beating Pittsburgh and Nashville, two teams. No, sorry, Chicago and Nashville, two teams they should have beaten. And then they go into the weekend back to back and lose to Washington and Pittsburgh. I thought they played well in both of those games, especially the Pittsburgh game, and just didn't happen. But I sort of dug a little bit deeper into their sort of stats and whatnot. And what I wasn't noticing, and part of this is because you don't know what their lines truly are at the moment. But if you look at players that are the top six and the bottom six, they are getting absolutely no scoring from their bottom six players.
Hmm.
So you got Robertson, who's got one goal. Fraser Mitten has come in and scored a couple, so it's nice. But you've got beyond that, you got very little. Domia, he's been injured for a while and been out, but he still has no goals. Kampf didn't have any goals. They got to get some secondary scoring. If their big six or the top two line guys aren't scoring, they're not scoring. And Washington was able to shut them down to some degree. Pittsburgh, their two goals, at least two goals came from those two lines. But I think as they get a little healthier, I think you're going to see the lines changing. I'll take the encouragement that on Saturday that Robertson was not in the lineup, and it was great to see Berube's comments on why he wasn't in the lineup. He's got to play better. He's got to prove it, and he just isn't doing it. I'm hoping as they get healthy, he's not in the lineup. And you've said it from day one. They can't keep throwing Reeves out there. He looks lost. He's too slow. He's just not doing anything out there. When you need to add some scoring, put Grabenkin in there, put Mitten in there, put the young guys in it because they're actually looking impressive. They're skating and they're changing the dynamic of the team. And let's move on from the guys that just aren't scoring and
Yeah,
aren't contributing in a positive manner. I get that Reeves goes out there and hits everybody in sight, but Grabenkin is playing that kind of role and hitting people and stuff and whatnot. So I'd like to see them move on from that, but I get right now with the injuries, they can't quite put the team on the ice. It'll be fun to see once McCann and Domi are back, what happens with the lineup and how they change things
all
around.
right, so I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Robertson sucks, then plays, sucks, then plays, sucks, then plays. Then all of a sudden, the Sportsnet studio guys pick apart his game and tear him to shreds. And the very next night, he sits. Is that a coincidence?
No, I think I no, I say yes. Um, but as you know, and we've both been in this business a long time, these pundits talk about stuff and then they talk about and they hear the rumblings going on in the team because they've got their inside guys. So they all of a sudden pick up on that and go, okay, I'm going to focus on it.
Yep.
We have been saying it from day one. He had a great preseason. He did that against guys who aren't in the league right now, and now he can't do it against the guys that should be in the league, and he's not proven that he should be in this league right now. Send him to the minors, put him on waivers. Somebody picks him up, who cares? If not, put him in the minors and let him continue to try and find his game. I'm
Fair
done
enough.
with it. Let's move on.
You're done with it. Wave
Busy week
his
for the
ass.
big week for the Leafs. The next week they got 5 tough games coming up. So
It's a busy week.
yeah, busy week. And they got 3 this week and 5 big tough games coming up. So let's see how they do. And hopefully they get healthy. But should we move on to the
Yeah.
place I think we want to talk about in the Four Nations
Yes.
Cup?
Let's talk Four Nations because I'm very excited for this tournament.
No kidding.
I think what's crazy to me about this tournament, and obviously I'm not the first person to say this by any stretch of the imagination, but you got to go into it thinking the U.S. is favored.
Just in sheer depth alone, and especially when you talk about a short series and goaltending. If Hellebuck or Ottinger are hot going in and play well, you know, and I'm Canadian. I always going to believe Team Canada can win because it was interesting. I don't know if you watched some of the pregame stuff on the different networks, and I think I mentioned to you I watched more TNT than I did of Sportsnet, and it was interesting to hear um, what some of the guys were talking about in terms of how the mentality of the U.S. team has changed in the couple of years, in terms of what has been the strength of Team Canada, whether they've got depth or the best players. We've always had some of the best players, but it's always been a team made up of guys who care and want put that jersey on, that Team Canada jersey on. I think we all grew up as kids wanting to wear our favorite team. For me, it was the Leafs, but I tell you, I would have worn Team Canada's jersey before I wore any other jersey if I could have, because I burned for the country. And I think that
Yes.
was the difference maker for Team Canada going into these events, that once these guys put on the jersey, nothing else mattered. You know, nothing else mattered. I don't think the U.S. players had that same mentality until a lot, you know, they've grown into it. And I think you've seen that sort of change. And they were mentioning that on a couple of the pregame shows where the U.S. team is starting to grow into that passion that Team Canada has. And I think you're right. I think they're the favorite going in, but you can't discount the Swedes for sure.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can't. It's such a short tournament. Who knows what happens? You're going to play three round robin games, and the top two games teams play for the championship. If you have one bad game, that could take you out of the tournament.
Yes. And that happens all the time,
Yeah.
right?
So it'll be interesting. So how do you want to break this down? Do you want to talk about your biggest, obviously, got to talk about Team Canada. What's your biggest surprise, either on the team or not on the team for Team Canada?
Um, I would have to say I, I see what they were trying to do when they built the roster. So I see why Anthony Cirelli is on the team.
Mhm.
Um, and Brandon Hagel for that matter. Would I have taken would I probably have taken Nick Suzuki before them? Yes. I would have. But I get where they were going with it. The
They're
other
trying to build a
surprise,
team and trying to build guys with
yeah,
familiarity. You saw that,
you need
especially on the
guys that you can
back end.
check.
Especially you see that on the back end with two existing pairings. I shouldn't say existing. One existing pairing in Cal McCarr and Devin
Devontae's.
Tags, but Peter Angelo and Theodore, although they don't play together now on the same line, they have played together. So
Yeah,
there's familiarity,
familiarity.
familiarity. Thank you, my tongue twister of the day. There. So you see, they talked about building it as a team and not necessarily taking the best players, which,
Yeah. Well, clear. Travis Sanheim,
yeah,
really?
I was
Maybe they
shocked.
just ran out of defensemen.
Well, here for me on the defensive side, I was kind of shocked, and maybe they know something that we don't know, being on the outside, being in. I was really shocked because you could have named players now, and if they're physically unable to play, you have a chance to swap them out prior to the tournament. So I'm very shocked that we don't see Doughty on this lineup, because if he's healthy, you want that guy on this
You want
team.
that guy on the team for sure.
And you could have taken him off coming there, coming. But I guess what they were trying to say is, hey, they either know something we don't, and he's just not going to be ready,
Right.
or they wanted guys to be mentally prepared, and between now and then they want to be talking to them and feeling and having the team get-togethers where they can, in terms of whether that's together or social through video chats and stuff. It sounds like they've started the preparation stage of these guys. So
Yeah.
that was the biggest surprise, one of the biggest surprises for me, in terms of I would have liked to seen just his name on this team. And
Yeah.
if he can't play come January, February, take him off then.
Yeah, look, the Kings are my number two team, and so I'm a huge Drew Doughty fan.
Yeah.
So clearly, they didn't think he was going to be ready,
Right.
and that's fine. You want people. I look at the defensemen they're bringing. They've got some amazing talent there, um, but it's not as deep as the U.S. bunch.
No.
We'll talk about the U.S. bunch in a sec. But the other thing that everyone's asking about is, Aiden Hill, Sam Montembeault, and Logan Thompson. You had to leave one of the three of them off, and it was Logan Thompson who ends up beating Montembeault on Saturday night on national
Yeah.
television. Outplayed him, played incredibly well. So it's a tough call.
Yeah, that's the other one for me. Look, it's clear they didn't see Logan Thompson being the starter, and since then they did what we had talked about: is put on a young guy on the team who could be the goaltender of the future for Team Canada, and
Who?
put him
Montembeault?
Montembeau, maybe be the goaltender.
Montembeault's not even going to be starting for the Canadians in 3 years.
Maybe, but I would have put I would have put Fleury on this team, and the way Thompson is playing, I wouldn't have been surprised he was on this team and actually started, because the
Especially
other,
as a change of pace.
yeah,
Like they were talking about it on
it's a
the
confidence too thing in
yeah,
goaltender. Like, a goaltender with confidence is hard to beat.
yeah, and it's also a change of pace thing.
Yeah,
They were talking about the Capitals goalie situation during the Canadians game the other night. And by the way, just as a tangent, why is it that every time I watch the Canadians on Saturday night, I have to sit there and listen to Gary Galley? Why is it that the Canadians always get Gary Galley as the color
he seems
analyst?
to be an expert. He's been doing the Montreal games for years.
Oh, but he hates the Canadians. He hates that you can. It comes out in everything he says. He just
Did he
like
want to be a
he.
Canadian? Is that what he hates them? Because
I
he
don't
never
know.
took
He was
them.
a Bruin, I think,
I
right? So no
know.
wonder he's like he hates the Canadians.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, this is not like watching, Bob Cole and and Harry Neal,
no,
or Dick Irvin and Harry Neal from the
no,
day. That's for sure.
yeah.
But anyway, that aside, tangent over. Uh, I feel like they were talking about Logan Thompson as a right catching goaltender, and how both he and Lindgren are right catching goaltenders, and that doesn't happen all that often. And turns out it's happened many more times than Gary Galley thought. But that aside, in a short series, in a short tournament, is it interesting as an idea to have a change of pace? Like, let's say you play a team in a round robin, you have a normal catching goalie, a left-handed catching goalie. You've seen him. You go into like a medal round afterwards, and wait, all of a
Well,
sudden
in a
now
longer,
you've got it's flipped around.
yeah, in a longer series or a longer tournament, I completely agree with that theory. But here's where I'm going. This is a 3-game series, 4 if you make the final.
Yeah,
You win game 1. The goalie who played game 1 is playing game 2, and so
unless he
forth and
really
so
shakes
on,
it.
right? Unless he really shanks it. If you lose game 1, let's just say right now, for argument's sake, Bennington is game 1 starter. They lose game 1. Aiden Hill's going in game 2. You're not putting the rookie goaltender. I shouldn't say he's not a rookie goaltender, but you're not putting the guy who's not had this kind of competition before, putting him in. The only way Montembeault plays is if they lose game 1 and game 2 and they go into game 3, might as well throw in the new goalie. That's the only way he plays in this tournament, as far as I'm concerned. Unless
I
he
don't
gets
know.
on fire between now and then, this is Binnington or Hale's starting position to lose, as far as I'm
I
without
think you're. I look. I
Thompson,
think you're right.
without Thompson on this team, who's clearly right now playing the best out of those 4. I think it's Binnington and Hill's job to lose, and they've got Montembeault there as because the third goaltender was somebody you could just there was 3 guys you could pick from, 4 guys you could pick from, and they took the guy that was relatively hot at the moment.
You're probably right. You're probably right. Um, yeah. Look, it's not like Team Canada had 67 guys to choose
No,
from for this position, right?
no.
Like
Well, it's weird to say that this is the first time I can remember as being a hockey fan that Team Canada didn't have a one and
clear
two
number one.
goalie, clear number one or a clear number one and two. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so,
It's crazy. It's
and we're
crazy. All right, let's move
focusing
on to
on
the
the goal, but
US.
yeah, let's move on to the US. What surprised you in the US team?
No Cole Caulfield.
That shocked me. And I'll go second is Tage Thompson, just because he is caught in some fire and and
Yeah,
again,
and he's huge.
there was also a lack of one of the knocks, I think, on Team USA, and I guess you could call the Chuck brothers the young guys, and I guess Hugheses are young. There's kind of feeling that there's a lack of really young talent on here. When I say young, I mean like a couple years into the league or whatnot. There's just
On Team USA?
yeah. Well, you got
What?
yeah. It just doesn't
You,
feel.
you've got Matt Boley, Jack
Yeah,
Hughes,
but they've been there for a while. They're not.
and those are the forwards. Look at the
Look,
bloody defensemen.
I gotta find a place to knock this team because it's pretty solid and pretty deep.
Right. But look at like, by the way, is there a defenseman over who's the oldest defenseman on this? You've got Brock Faber, Adam Fox, Hannafin, Hughes,
I
McAvoy,
don't know who
Slavin,
the
and Wierenski. Do they have a single defenseman over 27?
I
How old
don't
is
think
McAvoy?
I'm not sure. Who is the oldest player on oldest defenseman on that team? Is it
I it, it could be
is it
Slavin. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. Look at they're a deep team and they're going to be favored going into this thing. But
McAvoy's only 26. God, I thought he was like 28.
yeah, he's pretty young.
This
Uh
is a really, really young blue line. They are
yeah.
going to be playing world championship. Well, not world champion. They'll be playing Olympics for the
Yeah.
next 8 to 12 years. This bunch.
It's interesting though, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have the schedule up, but I thought I heard somebody mention game one, Canada US is actually in Montreal, not in the US. Because the
Nice.
final game is in
Boston.
Boston. So I think they're playing Canada US in Montreal. So wondering if how that will change the
Yeah.
tone and nature if I'm right on that.
It's
But
going to
I
be a
thought that was
loud, loud building. That's for sure. All right,
absolutely.
move on to Finland.
Yeah.
What's to say about Finland?
I don't
Everybody you thought would be on the team. Well, actually, you know what? I would like you just to read everyone's name on the
There's
Finnish roster.
no shot. There is no shot. I think I've
But
done pretty
see,
good with
what
Patrick Laine,
you did well with Patrick Laine, but man, there are some names on here that I know
Capo
you're not going to do.
Capco,
E, Capoca, I'd like you to see you get through E2 Lusteray.
there's no shot. There's no shot. No
Okay.
shot.
So
Let's not even do that to me.
Team unpronounceable is not going to win.
But
But but
even look at their goaltending. Uh,
they got
arguably,
Saros.
yes, Saros hasn't been playing great, but again, his team is playing terrible in front of him. But that's a deeper goaltending pool, you can argue, than Team Canada right
I
now
know.
in
I
terms of
know.
how they're playing. Yes, and I'm not even going to try and say Luke, the Buffalo
Uko
Sabres
Pekka
goal.
Luukkonen. All
Yeah,
right.
Luke
First of all, the
Pekka
great thing about
Luukkonen.
Uko, the great thing about UPL, let's
Were
just
you
call him that.
practicing that before this?
No, no. The great thing about him is that he's the only forget hockey player. He's the only human being I've ever heard of whose three names both have two K's in them. Consecutive Ks, not just two Ks, two consecutive. Uka
It's
Pekka Luukkonen.
it's
That is
crazy.
that's a great name.
But he's pretty young and he's playing pretty good. So
Yeah, for the Buffalo team that's lost 6 games straight.
yeah, but he's younger. But obviously Saros is the starting goaltender on this team.
Yes, yes.
But arguably you can say those three goaltenders are playing better than Team Canada's goaltenders.
They've got two Canadians on that team. They've
Yeah.
got Line and Yoel Armia.
The question mark on this team is going to be on the point, I think. I think that's their weak point. I think they're
Well,
going
they
to
got
be
Miro Heiskanen,
I
probably a
think they're yeah, but
top
I
four
think you
defenseman
got
in the league.
Hackenpah from the Leafs who's injured right now. He might not even
Right.
be there come February. I
Oh no,
think
they're not great.
I think that's the weak part of their team. Obviously, they're going to score goals. They're going to be flashy. Um, so it's a solid team, but you know, who knows? But
Yeah.
I think
All right.
what's favorable for Finland going into this tournament is that no one's talking about them, right?
That's right.
Could they come in and sort of shock the world? Who
No.
knows? It's a short
No,
tournament. You can't say that.
yeah, I'm saying, yeah. There's no
Okay.
way either of those teams
Let's put
beats.
the note here. Ryan isn't picking Finland.
Yeah, Ryan is not picking Phil. All right, Sweden.
Sweden. Again, great
Sweden looks
goaltending. They look solid too, you know. Again, I would probably say their weak part is going to be their back end.
I
Look
don't
at they got
know.
Ekholm is a good defenseman. Obviously, Victor
You get
Hedman's a world-class goaltender.
the
Carlson is a
three of their
liability on the defensive end.
Hedman, Ekholm, and Brodin, and now Forsling. That is an incredibly good top four. I'd put that
No
top four
question.
up against Canada.
Yeah, no question.
It's their third pairing that I got a problem with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And who are they going to? Markstrom's playing pretty well in Jersey. Gustafson's playing well in Minnesota, but he's not the reason why they're the best team in the league right
Yeah.
now. Allmark signed a huge contract and is not playing like it. So Sweden's an interesting team. Sweden is an interesting team. Like, I don't think they have the firepower to keep up with,
No.
either the Canadians or the Americans, but they're a good team.
Well, Zibanejad. I got that, right?
You got that
Zibanejad.
one. That may be the first time.
Well, we can talk about this when we get to the Rangers, talk about it, but where is he even in New York, right?
Yeah.
He's missing in action.
Which is surprising because guys like that usually don't fall off so
Yeah,
quickly.
absolutely.
Um,
So yes, they have potential on the front end. Phillips Forsberg as well. Where is he being in Nashville?
yeah.
So they've got a lot of potential on this team, but they got a lot of guys on this team that just haven't shown up yet in the NHL.
Yeah. For this year,
So
anyway.
yeah, so that's what I mean. So
Yeah.
will this team get hot going into this thing? I don't know. Okay,
I don't
we're
know. All right, so who are
obviously
you picking? Are you
Canadian.
picking who are you picking? Are you picking the
Look at
US or Canada? Clearly, both of us are.
look at I cannot not pick Canada because I'm a Canadian. It just is unreligious, to not pick your nation here. But I'm worried, and I know they could end up third place in this tournament.
I think they either win it or finish third.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Uh, but here's look. The way I look at it, they are either going to, if they finish third, it'll be because of their goaltending, right?
Yes.
And if the goaltending holds up, and Hill slash Binnington slash Montembeau can at least keep up a little bit with Ottinger and Hellebuck, I think you have the two best players on the planet on Team Canada, and they
No
and
question.
they are not just brainier, but they are just physically better. McKinnon and McDavid are faster than everybody else, more skilled than everybody else. And if they get an opportunity to put their stamp on these games, Canada will win everything.
You got to think that first power play being McKinnon, McDavid, Marner, and
Crosby. Well,
Crosby
you gotta
on
have
the.
you have to have one defenseman out
Well, you're
there.
gonna have one
Yeah,
defenseman.
yeah,
You're gonna have Makar out there. Like Makar is going to
yeah.
play the full 2 minutes of every power play.
Yes.
Obviously, they can put Peter Angelo out there as well. You could put Theodore out there to start Morrissey, obviously as well. Like
Yep.
they're from a puck moving defensive group that's pretty good. The question mark for Team Canada, and I know where I stand on this, and I'm glad they didn't go there. What's your point of view? Because the one player that's getting the most talk about it that's not on this roster is Tom Wilson. And I'm a little shocked that people are pushing for him that much because I just don't
Well,
think he
look,
has a
he
place
did
on this team
he did take a slap shot to the cheek
and
last
scored three
on
goals. I got that.
and
Yeah.
scored 2 goals or 3 goals, whatever.
Sorry,
Like
two. You're right. Two. My
two, he had
apologies.
two. He's a gutsy player. He's the kind of guy.
No question.
By the way, I can't stand the guy, so it hurts me
Yes.
to say this, but like
But in a short tournament, he could be a liability.
I don't think you need that kind of grit
I don't think
in
so.
this
I
kind
don't
of
think so.
tournament.
No, your grit on this team is is Braden Point, is Sam Bennett,
Yeah,
is Marchant, um, Peter Angelo, Santa. Like you've got enough.
I
You don't need
agree.
an agitator out there that could actually take some stupid penalties. So I'm not
Yeah.
understanding why some of the pundits are going, yeah, Tom Wilson should be on this team. No way. And the other one is, and as much as I'm a Leaf fan, I'm wearing my Leaf shirt. Tavin doesn't fit on this defensive core either. He's too slow. He's no
Who?
Chris Tavin.
Oh, correct, Tanev. Oh,
Tanev.
for a second, I thought you were going to say Morgan Riley
No,
should be
no,
on the team.
no, not a chance. Well, who you can't put Morgan Riley on this team because you got Morrissey, McCarr,
A lot of offensive defense.
offensive defenseman. Where does he? He's not a defensive defenseman. He's a liability on defense on this team. You can't have him out there. But the
All right.
Tom
Well,
Wilson
we've only
one
got a few
surprised me a
minutes
bit.
left.
Okay, we got to
We've
go to
only
the
got a few minutes
Rangers.
left. So you have to give me you're calling Canada. I am calling. I am going to say I think Canada has a good chance, but I think maybe the U.S. takes this tournament.
Yeah, it could be. It's going to be Canada-U.S. final. It could go to overtime. Let's
Yeah.
go another
Oh,
overtime.
that'd be
Let's go
interesting.
another OT. That'd be a lot of fun. How much fun would that be?
By the
Canada,
way, how do
US
they? Do you
is
know what the rules
over.
are for that? Do they go to a shootout in the final, or do they just
I
play
don't
OT
know. I
until?
don't. We
I
should
don't
know.
know. That'd be
Let's check
interesting.
that. Let's check that.
We'll check that for next time.
Yeah, next
All
time.
right, we've got just a couple minutes left.
We got to talk about the Rangers, don't we?
Let's talk about the Rangers. Let's talk.
Oh
So
my God. What the hell has happened?
So,
They've imploded.
so they were playing kind of. They were underperforming. This is a President's Trophy winning team from last season, who's in playoff position, but not by a ton. And they thought that their problems started with their veterans and who are making a lot of money. And so they started with Jacob Trouba, who they tried to get rid of in the offseason, but he invoked his no trade clause and wanted to come back because his wife is in medical. She's a resident in a hospital in New York.
Oh,
so,
is she? Oh,
yeah. So so like he wanted to stay close to her. He makes $8 million a year and plays like a $3.5–4 million defenseman, and that's not working out for them. But and they clearly want to make some more moves at the deadline, so they need to free up space.
I get all that. But what is puzzling me about this move is that he had a lot of say in where he could go.
Yep.
Why do you pick Anaheim?
I think it was the best of bad situation. In other words,
picked Anaheim. I get why the team.
No, they may have had 3 deals, and Anaheim was the least offensive to him. Because remember, they threatened him, we'll put you on waivers, and the first crap team that wants you picks you up.
Yes.
You have no say in the matter.
Right.
And that's what pissed off, I think, most of the Rangers players.
Right.
It's like, well, this is what you think of us? Like,
right.
And then to follow that up by signing your goalie to an $11.5 million a year deal.
Who, by the way, hasn't won anything yet. Look at great goaltending. He hasn't won squat.
Nope. I'm not going to lie.
Pay this guy
he's a great goalie. He's a great goalie. But the Canadians paid Carey Price that kind of money because he had won gold medals and world championships, had been stolen playoff series from them.
Yes.
Like, Shesterkin has played very well in the playoffs. He has there's no arguing with that. He has not won them. He's not stolen a series for them.
Yeah.
And for an $11.5 million a year, that's you're committing a lot of money to the goalie position.
Yes, and let's go back and look at some of the Stanley Cup champions and the goaltending that they've got. Not $11.5 million goaltender standing back there in a lot of those cases.
Nope.
Colorado won it with who was in net for Colorado when they won it a few years ago? What's his name? That's now in
Varlamov? Varlamov, wasn't it?
Oh, I can't remember who it was. That's how bad he was. They won with a crap goaltender. Like I'm sorry, goaltending is very important in the NHL. I'll never say it's not. But to put $11.5 million on that, I'll take the Leafs tandem right now the way they're playing.
If Chris Drury's not on the hot seat, he should be.
Oh,
let's see what he turns this. Well, I don't know if he turns this $8 million into anything because he's signed Shesterkin so quickly. But like he's gonna have to replace that spot on the line, on the blue line. He's gonna figure out how to remind K'Andre Miller how to play hockey again. Adam Fox is carrying that blue line right now.
And like we just said a few minutes ago, where has Zibanejad been? He is missing in action.
I know. Of course, he scored against Montreal, though.
Oh yeah.
He's been a Habs killer since the day he came into the league. He tortured us when he was with Ottawa, and he tortures us with the Rangers. But he just can't seem to do anything against anybody else.
Well, I'm just pulling up their stats right here, right now. Like, yeah, Panarin is like Fox said to your point. Lafreniere has got 20 points, but Zibanejad gets 20 points. He's got 5 goals. They're not paying this guy to not to score goals. He got
That's
5 goals.
That's
You
right.
know, Panarin's the only one in double. Oh, sorry, Krieger's got 10. Other than
And they
Krieger,
want to trade him.
yeah, like Jesus, like they've got a team right now really underperforming
Yeah.
on a lot of fronts. And you're right, Drury has got to be on the hot seat here. But you know what? When you just let him pay their goaltender, that's 1-0, and good. Everybody's gonna laugh. But what the hell are you two talking about? That the guy's an all-star goaltender. Yeah, he is. But how do you pay this guy $11.5 million when your team right now, and again, it's not surely his fault, is 3-7 and in real danger of potentially, if they keep this up, not making the playoffs this year.
Yep.
Like,
If they don't make the playoffs, New York will implode.
just
The only thing
absolutely
they had,
implode.
especially because the Devils are very good. Like I said, they're very good.
Absolutely. They're good, even though I hate their coach, but very good. And I shouldn't say I hate coach. Like I just didn't like the way he coached in the last few years of the Leafs. But no, we've talked about this. Jersey is a fast, young team, and they're playing well.
They're going to
It's
make a move at the
so
deadline too and get even
yes,
better.
yeah,
They're going to pick up another defenseman, I
yeah.
think.
But to your point, they got a lot of old Rangers got a lot of old veterans on this team. They're gonna have to give up a lot of draft capital in order to improve this team because you might have a few of the team's front runners that might want some of their older guys, but they're making too much money. And with the salary cap issues now, they talked about it on one of the things is that you're seeing less of those blockbuster trades
The hockey trades,
because
yeah,
hockey trades because it's so hard in the salary cap era to do that. And all of it's happening at the trade deadline because then you can play with the salary cap towards the end of the season. You
yep.
can't do that mid-season anymore. There used to be those, remember that big blog? It didn't happen at the trade deadline, that blockbuster when the Leafs got Gilmore, the 7-player deal with Calgary. That happened like before Christmas, I thought, that year. And
You
you
don't
just
see that
don't
very
see
often
that anymore
anymore.
because of the salary cap. So
Yeah,
it's interesting. And we can't leave this podcast today also talking with the second coach getting fired and one other that should be fired.
well, let's not
Um,
talk about Luke Richardson because look,
I feel
he's
bad
not
for him.
developing the young guys the way that's what they hired him for, right? Like they hired him to develop the young guys, and for whatever reason, Bedard's not having a second season like people thought he would. And Karchinski is playing well, but they thought he would take a bigger step forward. So there's disappointment there, and they're not winning games, and they wanted to take a step forward. I I think it's a bit of a mess in Chicago. I think they're not committing enough to the rebuild. They're not as
Right.
patient as Montreal has been and Anaheim has been, and they're
Yeah.
going to pay the price for that.
And look at San Jose is making them look bad because San Jose is winning some games and
Right.
and they were Chicago of last year, right? In
Yeah.
terms of being playing so bad. So right. I feel
Well,
bad for Richardson, tell me how if Richardson gets fired, how
how
does
does Andrew Brunette
Andrew
still have a
Bennett still
job?
have a job?
I
Like
don't know.
like minus 27. They've lost three, but they really have lost what 5 or 6 a row on the road. They like we said it this week. You corrected me and rightfully so. I said when the Leafs beat them on Wednesday, he's lost his job. And you corrected me and said, no, they're playing the next night in Montreal. He's not getting fired on a back-to-back. I said, okay, if he loses Montreal, he's gone on Friday. Well, we're here on Sunday, and this guy still has a job. How is that?
Yeah. So I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because they were built this offseason as a contender, and they went into Montreal in the back half of a back to back. So I get it,
Got shut out.
but they got shut out by the 30th ranked team in the league, and the Canadians did not play particularly great doing.
Like if you want a guy on a hot seat, does this guy have like Teflon underwear on? Because I just don't know how his butt is not on fire.
I don't
And
know.
and they're not firing Trotz because they did everything to get Trotz in here.
No.
Now, Trotz is maybe that's the only reason he's got a job here. Trotz has created this mess by
Yep.
assembling this team, thinking it was going to work. And look at, we bought in. We thought there was no way this team isn't going to be a contender. No way they're not going to make the playoffs, and no way they're going to be minus 27 and one of the worst teams in goals for when they added 240 goal scorers and Soros in net, who's pretty darn good. Yes, we all said it. They were going to be weak on the point, but not this bad.
Yeah, not this
This
bad.
is, they could end up being last place this year.
Wow. And it would piss me off if they won the lottery because they don't deserve Porter Martone or James Higgins. That's for sure.
But they're not going to be dead last. But
No.
they're only 2 points up on Chicago at this point, and it's
brutal.
early. But oh my God, like
It's
you're right.
bad.
Like how, because and the other one you got to say is if Burnett's on the hot seat, they fired Richardson in Chicago. How is Lafreniere, not Lafreniere, Leviat not on the hot seat as well in New York? Because this team is spiraling out of control. As
Yeah.
you said it last year, President's Cup winner. They clearly said, okay, it's not important to win the President's Cup, and the Jets started going, okay, we don't need to worry about it either. But
Yeah.
now to
By the
do
way,
what they're doing,
Laviolette's that guy who wears out his welcome fairly quickly.
yeah, well, he's like
He never lasts too long.
Well, he's like what's his name in Philadelphia?
Torts.
Those guys, they're yellers and screamers, and they get removed. Their act
They wear out their
runs
welcome.
thin. Yeah, their runs
They
thin
wear
pretty
it out.
quickly with the players, especially in today's NHL where these guys don't like to be yelled at. Paid too much money to get yelled. Not like the old days where you had Pat Burns screaming at people on the bench. But yeah,
The good old days.
yeah, it's an interesting thing going on, and it'll be interesting to see this week if Burnett and Leviat still have their jobs at the end of this weekend. If something doesn't happen or change in New York, does Drury get run out of this city pretty quickly? Who knows? But something's got to change.
All right. Well, I think that's
it?
that's a wrap for this week. Stay tuned for next week when Phil takes the Finnish roster challenge.
Wait, I'm taking the coaching job in Nashville. What do you mean?
I know. Well, you might get it in New York because you can't pronounce Laviolette.
I can't. Can you imagine me coaching a Leaf team,
Oh my God.
NHL team, and I can't pronounce half the team?
That would be. It would be difficult to position yourself as a player's coach if you can't
Six
pronounce
guys
their
jumping
names.
over the bench because no one knows what the hell.
You, 34, over the bench. Off you go. All right, Phil. Hey,
All right,
have a
well,
great
fun.
week, and we'll talk to you next week, man.
Talk to you soon, man. Okay, have a good one.